Basically, I always wanted to become a doctor. When I was a child, this was my only wish. There was not any alternative on the horizon.
Welcome to Impact Investing TV.
Together, we will go on a global adventure, discovering the power of impact investing.
You will meet inspiring humans who are shaping a sustainable world for current and future generations.
There is no limit to the positive changes when we come together.
Let the journey begin. Hi everyone and welcome to episode 9 of season 7. We actually just returned back from UAE, from Dubai, and are still adjusting to the cold, wet and cloudy weather. Haven't seen the sun for 3 days.
Exactly. To all those who are joining in for the first time in this season, the theme is Impact Investing Worldwide, Uniting for a Sustainable Future.
The dynamism and action in Dubai is so infectious. It felt like we were living 3.5 weeks on adrenaline. Non-stop meetings, events, inspiring discussions. And thanks to the COP28, most people coming there were not only aware of climate change, but also active in all sorts of ways to support or mitigate it. It was quite an adventure where all the voice of the voiceless came there.
And today is about giving voice to the voiceless and serving others in every way that each and every one of us can. Although we live in a world where serving yourself seems to have become the highest goal, but being old-fashioned, I still believe that the ultimate goal of every human being should be to serve others.
That is so true. And today I think we are going to talk about the core of the humans, the heart. Imagine if the heart is not working. Saying that, we invite our guest of today, who is such a person running an organization meant to serve others. Dr. and Professor Dr. Paul Robert Vogt from the EurAsia Heart Foundation. Please come to see us today.
Okay, hello, Sveta, hello, Ben. Thank you for the invitation to Impact Investing Solutions, and thank you for the introduction. EurAsia Heart Foundation is a foundation.
Wait a second. I'd like to introduce you even more. So thank you, first of all, for joining us, right? And for those who don't know you yet, you are a professor of cardiovascular surgery. You're former director in the Department of Cardiac Surgery at the University Hospital in Zurich in Switzerland. And you are also serving as the founder and president of EurAsia Heart Foundation, of which we are going to talk today a lot. You are also senior consultant surgeon in Hirslanden Group in the Zurich Center in Switzerland. You also work in different countries to help saving kids and adults who have no proper access to the medicine
Heart problems.
Exactly. Thank you for heart issues. So anything I forgot?
No, I think that was your introduction. So, Paul, what inspired you to choose medicine and establish the EurAsia Heart Foundation?
Basically, I always wanted to become a doctor. When I was a child, this was my only wish. There was not any alternative on the horizon. So I studied medicine, then I went into cardiac surgery. This was rather by a great opportunity to do it here in Zurich. And then in 1999, I worked with a Chinese guest doctor in Zurich. And 1 year later, in 2000, he invited me to Wuhan, to the legendary Wuhan. He said I should take with me the magnifying glasses. And then I did some relatively simple surgery. It was broadcasted to several universities in China. And then I got a lot of invitations to different Chinese universities where I did some surgeries. And it was also a time when medical technical companies which organized meetings and congresses, they looked for someone who is doing surgery in public. And so I traveled for I would say almost 10 months, 11 months in 2-3 week missions to China. Then I got by mouth-to-mouth propaganda to Vietnam. I did some surgeries there in the Chorai Hospital, which was the only cardiac surgery at that time in Ho Chi Minh City. And then the Vietnamese doctor asked me if not more people from the European Union could come to Asia to show them how they have to treat with their own measures, with what they have, their problems and solve the problems. And then I said, okay, if more people should travel to Asia or within Eurasian countries or so, maybe we need an organization. And then I started to found EurAsia Heart Foundation.
And what has been the most rewarding aspect of your work with the EurAsia Heart Foundation till now?
I mean, there are so many rewarding aspects of the work. Of course, the best is if you can save patients' life, if you can save children. I mean, in developing countries or so, when I started in 2000, there were thousands or millions of patients which did not have adequate diagnosis and treatment. In many countries, mortality, morbidity was too high from the operating procedures. The spectrum was too narrow. And I mean, it's quite rewarding, if you have a poor child who basically has no chance, you're going to operate it, and the child is surviving, can have a normal life, and the parents are happy. I mean, there is no better reward for this. And of course, we only do or did complex surgery ourselves. What the local team wanted that we are going to do. But if always possible, we try to assist surgery to the local staff. So we are basically a teaching and educational foundation. It's not so that we are going to travel in one country, that we take a lot of devices with us. So we only travel with our magnifying glasses, maybe with the micro instruments. But usually we work with what they have to show them what we can do with their own means. And we always wanted to leave an educated and an improved team back in these countries. Just to go there, do surgery, and going back home and to teach nobody is no solution. So we basically are an educational and teaching foundation. And so we have founded some new cardiac surgery hospitals. We have educated a lot of colleagues, and I would say within the last 23 years, we created in a certain way about 17 different chief doctors who have become chief cardiac surgeons or chief intensivists or chief anesthesiologists. And so then they can lead their own team. That's very important.
How long does it take, Paul, for a team in a country to learn from you? Like, is it 10 days enough or 5 days, or you need a month to stay there?
It takes several years.
Several years. Oh, wow. Okay.
Several years. Because if we choose to go to one country, to one hospital, usually we go to the really underdeveloped hospitals, because this is the cheapest one. And there are the poor patients who cannot afford surgery, the parents who cannot pay, or so they go to the cheapest hospital, and usually they have the worst results. So we don't go in these countries to some well-established functioning hospitals, but the poor ones. And then within the shortest period of time, we can make the greatest progress and save the largest number of patients. But usually we do missions, we go for 2 or 3 weeks. Then let's say we are operating 20 patients with the local staff. The patient is going to the ICU, to the intensive care station. And then we look that all the patients can be discharged to the regular ward, and then we travel back home, but still stay in contact until all these patients are discharged from the hospital. And we do repeated missions. Maybe we are going 4 times, 6 times, or 8 times per year, always to the same hospital. Then we can monitor the progress, what the team is doing. So there are some teams which need a very basic knowledge, where we have to go with nurses, anesthesiologists, perfusionists, cardiologists, and so on, and more than one surgeon. Or there are some more experienced teams, who can do the basic surgery on their own. And they ask for more complex operations and for more advanced education or so. And that depends on the country, and that depends on the individual staff members on the hospital. But usually it's always a long-term cooperation. It makes no sense to travel somewhere twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then leave them back. But so we have, I would say that the longest, how should I say, the long-term cooperation with Wuhan, as an example, it lasts for 23 years. So I was this year and was in Wuhan. But of course, the hospital developed unbelievable. They are number 3 in China, and they have an excellent level. And so the cooperation is changing from teaching and education maybe to research or so. And then there are other hospitals where you have to teach very basic operations. So it depends really on the local condition and on the educational degree of the local staff members.
And what is the primary mission of your foundation, and how do you select regions or countries to operate in?
Usually we get a request from a country, maybe from president, from the Minister of Health, from the hospital director. They have a question, if you can help develop the hospital, if you can create a new cardiac surgery hospital just from scratch. And then usually I go have a look, something like a fact-finding mission, to see what are the conditions, what is already there, what do they need or so. Is it feasible to create a cardiac surgery? Does it work? Are all the staff members, do they agree? Do they want to have a program? Are they really interested in cooperation? And from the hospital director or the mayor of the city or the Minister of Health, all from top to the local staff members, they must agree that they want to go into such a long-term cooperation. And then we are evaluating the need, with how many people do we have to go, what kind of materials have we to take with us, and then we make a mission and get the first experience how to cooperate with the team. If it works, what's the diagnostics, do we need an echocardiography expert because all the diagnoses are wrong? Does the ICU, intensive care medicine work? And then we get our experience. But, after so many missions we have done, after so many patients we have treated in many countries, we can very quick decide if it's possible to establish a program for the best benefit of the patients and what's necessary.
Could you share a success story from one of your missions, your favorite one?
Yeah, there are many favorite ones,
You can share here if you want to.
Yeah, I can tell the story of 2 girls very recently, where we have been in Uzbekistan. The one girl was 5 years, the other girl was 9 years. They had a very complex diagnosis, which basically is inoperable, which what basically they suffered a lot of. They had the body full of water. They could do any physical exercise or so, and they have said to be inoperable because they have a special diagnosis, a special cardiomyopathy, which at the end would need cardiac transplantation, which is not feasible, of course, in these countries, And then this was a bit uncommon for us, this kind of diagnosis, because it's rare. And then we should see 2 children or 2 girls, with this very rare diagnosis, and we started to evaluate them ourselves with echocardiography, and we had a very different diagnosis, basically, with the urgent need for a life-saving surgery. And then in these 2 girls, 5 years and 9 years, with a relatively simple operation, okay, it took about 4 or 5 hours, but it was technically, it was not too difficult. We could completely solve the problem, and now these 2 girls, instead of being told to be inoperable and waiting when they will die in a few months or years or so, now they are healthy. They can go to school or so. They have their full physical capacity and they will have a normal life. And even so, they don't need any complex medication for their lifetime. And so, we have treated all over Eurasia and in some countries in Africa, more than 34,000 patients.
34,000 patients,
Yes,
right?
we have
Okay.
more than 5,500 operations and complex cardiological interventions and so. And basically because they are collecting the more difficult patients and complex patients. I would say in every mission we are really going to save children and adults, which otherwise wouldn't have any chance.
Yes, I mean, the impact you're saying, it's enormous. And of course, it would be great to scale it. So let's see how we can help you with that. But what are the main challenges you face when working in developing and emerging countries? So what do you usually struggle with if you go there?
Maybe at the very beginning, early in the 2000s, with the first experiences to go abroad, maybe it was a bit struggle just to become accustomed to the local conditions or so. But you have done several missions and you are a bit flexible or so. You know how, when it needs improvisation, and when you really have some exercise to use what they have, and you cannot ask, do you have this device? No, we have not. Do you have this instrument? No, we have not. But then you find a solution. But then you get a lot of experience. You can handle most of the problems. We also have, I would say, enough people from all over the world, be it from all countries in Europe, from Eurasia, colleagues we have educated for 10 to 15 years, which now have become teachers within EurAsia Heart Foundation. We have enough people who are willing to go as teachers. And this also includes nurses, which are very important, the nurses on the ICU, the nurses on the regular ward. I would say we have the manpower, and the pool of teachers is big enough. And of course, the biggest problem what we have is the financial capacity. The more money we have, of course, the more missions we can do. As an example, we started now a mission in Afghanistan. We did the first surgery in the governmental cardiac institute in Kabul. I was in Afghanistan in August this year. They have about 100,000 children waiting for cardiac surgery. And there,
100,000 children.
yes, and there we need $1,000 to save the life of one child, and it's very easy. The better our financial capacities, and the more we can do. So the donations, it's not stable for our foundation. Sometimes we have more money, sometimes we have less financial abilities or so. If we have more money, then we are able to organize 4 missions in parallel. So that means one team is working in Ukraine, one team is working in Myanmar, one team was working in four different countries at the same time. If the donations are rather sparse or scarce, then we have to look that we have not to interrupt our program. Then we have to reduce the number of missions, and maybe we can just carry out one mission per once in one country or so. But the limiting factor is not the willingness of nurses, of doctors from all over the world to travel to these countries and to work for free. So what is our foundation financing? The foundation is only financing the travel expenses and the local costs. Otherwise, we work for free. So we don't take any money. Or for diagnosis, treatment, surgery, for education, for giving presentations, for organizing courses or so. This is all for free. So if someone decides, let's go 2 to 3 weeks with EurAsia Heart to Myanmar or to Iraq or so, of course it does not earn money. But at the end, it has this famous black or so, and with a lot of experience and emotional experience, a good experience for life. And I must say, whoever traveled with EurAsia Heart Foundation will always come back and ask again and again and again. We haven't lost a single staff member within EurAsia Heart Foundation who said, okay, I did not like it, I don't want to come back again with you.
Yeah. And Paul, is the language an obstacle? Because in which language are you teaching in those countries?
Yeah, sometimes it might be an obstacle. It's more difficult to teach in the intensive care medicine, because in surgery, these are pictures or so.
Yeah.
This is how you do something you can show. But if it's about more sophisticated explanations and teaching in intensive care medicine, as an example, and then language may be a problem. But meanwhile, we will always find someone who can speak English or so. We have team members who can speak Russian, and I can give you some very interesting example. Last year, we worked in Iraq, in Kerbala. We operate 3 children per day, 20 days, 60 children. And once we were the team in the operating theater with 8 different languages. 8 different languages. It worked.
Well, I think when the mission is right, then you find the language which is the heart, right? Which speaks. So that's.
But it was a great exception. It was Russian, it was Kazakh language, it was Georgian language, it was Arabic, English, of course, German, of course, it was Persian, and it was Aramaic also. And then were people from Syria there, and we all worked together and could understand each other easily.
And do you also take students or young doctors from here to educate them or give them experience?
Yeah, that's a problem. Usually when we go somewhere, they show very complex patients. And they show patients from newborns, babies, adults, or so in cardiovascular. And they are clever and they are good teams or so, who have excellent abilities already. And then they reserve the more difficult and more complex patients, which they either do not like to operate, which we should show how they have to operate it. And then you only can basically send most experienced people who have professional experience for 20, 30, 40 years, who have been senior surgeons or chief surgeons or so. And of course, we can take young doctors with us, but we cannot assist them the operations, because we have to assist operations if we are going to assist these operations to the local staff members. We can only take with us very young colleagues from Switzerland, as an example, who can observe, maybe who can just participate or so. But we have to teach the local people, because they are collecting and they are preparing the patients. They want to have an education, of course. It would be unfair, to take young people from Switzerland and to teach them, and the other ones are just stand by and cannot get the education they want to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, and are there any ethical dilemmas you are facing in deciding which patient will receive a treatment and which won't? Given your limited resources, I think it can be challenging sometimes.
Yeah, there are several ethical problems. That's quite clear, One is you cannot operate every patient in every hospital. First of all, you have to go to look on the ward. Can the patient be treated on the ward? Then you go on the intensive care station. Can they treat the patient after surgery? And then you go into the operating room and look, can he be operated with this technology they have? And sometimes you have to reject patients with too complex surgeries, because, the hospital is not yet ready to manage these patients. We have to invest in teachment and education first, and then the patient can come back. So this is one problem. We have very carefully to select the patient. This is no heroism. It's no egomania or things like that. The patient must have a good result and must survive first. And secondly, sometimes there is a very complex operation where you cannot do corrective surgery. You can just improve something. The patient then needs complex medications after surgery, and during the follow-up needs a second or a third operation. Everything complex, very expensive or so, needing a lot of resources in these healthcare systems. And on the other hand, with the same amount of money, of course, you can save 20 or 30 or 40 children, And then we have to decide what you're going to do. Also, it's difficult Sometimes there is a patient, an emergency or an urgent child which arrived in the hospital. Still, we are there for 3 days. And then they ask us to do the surgery still before leaving the hospital. And we don't like to do surgery the last day because then the patient is on the ICU and we are somewhere in the air trough.
Yeah.
But then a colleague said, if you are not doing this surgery now in this child, you will never see this child again when you are coming back next time. So please do it, take the risk. And of course, that's, this is professional experience and a good ethical standard. And we usually always only decide according to the medical facts or so. But there's sometimes we have to do really difficult decisions if a patient has the last chance. And we say, okay, but the hospital is not yet ready, we have to give education.
Right.
Have maybe next time to bring some special devices or implants with us, and then we are calling the patient, he should come back and then we can do it. So it's very individualized medicine, what we are doing in these countries.
Yeah, it's life and death. It's really close, right? Everyone is walking every day with that. We don't realize, but when it becomes closer, then it's very difficult to make decisions. So it's bravo to you guys. It's amazing.
And then on the other hand, of course, we are collecting materials. Of course, there are a lot of devices in the cellars of Swiss hospitals or so. We get material from medical technical companies. And during 20 years or so, we distributed for free medical devices, disposables, heart-lung machines also for a total of 12 million Swiss francs. That's about $13 to $14 million. We did send to these countries. Cardiac surgery needs a basic equipment, or so you need a heart-lung machine, or so you need an echocardiography, you need mechanical ventilation devices and some medications, otherwise you can't do it. And so we collected the material in Switzerland, organized transfer to these countries in a total, I would say, close to 14 million US dollars.
Wow.
Amazing.
And does your foundation also collaborate with local healthcare providers?
What do you mean with healthcare providers?
When you go to, for example, Afghanistan or any other country, so the hospitals running there, the doctors working there, do you also collaborate with them next to education and training?
Of course. If you are talking about Afghanistan, of course, we went to Afghanistan, fact-finding mission. We've been in contact with the Ministry of Higher Education, with the Ministry of Health, with the governmental hospital, the Cardiac Institute, get to know the entire team or so, met the Afghan Medical Council, and looked that everything is smooth. And then we start to cooperate with the local team under the surveillance of the local healthcare decision makers, always. That's we don't go into a hospital and do our surgeries alone or so, but we always work with the local healthcare and decision makers, and sometimes it works that we can motivate rich local people, that we say, okay, you have a lot of money, you can buy equipment, we need this and we need that or so, and what we bring, you cannot buy. Even with billions, you cannot buy what we bring. Bring the knowledge, the skills, and how to do it. EurAsia Heart has not been created just by administrative paperwork or so, but EurAsia Heart Foundation has been created and grown by active work in the operating table, on the operating table, in the intensive care station, and on the ward with direct contact with patients. So our paperwork is absolutely minimal. And what everyone, of course, always wants to know is what are the administrative costs of EurAsia Heart Foundation? I can tell you it's always between 1% to 3%. That means that 95-96% of all the donations go directly in what is the key task of EurAsia Heart Foundation. Yes.
What are the long-term goals of EurAsia Heart Foundation?
I couldn't understand this.
Your long-term goals. What are your plans of the foundation?
It's difficult, the world is changing. what we can see is that the hospitals where we started once, they are excellent hospitals. Today, we don't need to go anymore. So we go to underdeveloped countries. There are a lot of requests at different levels from Eurasia, still from African countries. The long-term goal can only be to save as many patients as possible and educate as many colleagues as possible. What we, of course, have learned and what's quite clear is we cannot change the world and we cannot make a big difference in the world, But for the individual child, we can make a huge difference for his entire life. So we work for the children, for the individual children, for the adults, for the parents or so. And we don't think that we are the heroes who are going to change the world and doing big things or so. It's really directed on the individual child and it's the life of this child or of the parents, of course, of the family and also of adult patients we are going to improve. And for them, it's a big difference. And we continue. There's always still a lot of work to do. You have to know that worldwide, 90% of all children with heart defects, they don't get any treatment and they don't get any diagnosis.
90%.
90%, yeah.
My God.
So to cope with this problem, it would need 4,000 congenital cardiac surgeons, to solve the problem. We say 4,000. It would need worldwide another 4,000 pediatric cardiac surgeons, to save these children. So, we don't need any without saying long term that there is enough, I can work until I'm 100 years old. Of course, but we also take a lot of young colleagues into the foundation or so that we can increase the pool of doctors working in our foundation.
Mm-hmm. And how does the foundation actually measure impact of its work in the countries that you operate in? How do you measure the impact?
So, of course, you have, there are the average international results with regard to mortality and morbidity. That means the complication rate. So what we do, we are, of course, collecting our results and we compare with the international average results. Of course, our motivation is to be better or so.
Yep.
And we follow our patients. So let's say we have operated a child somewhere in Iraq or so. We are back home and the child surprisingly gets a problem. Then they are calling us. We do a Zoom conference. They send us CT scan, pictures and so on. And then we try to help from the distance. Then we go back, make another missions, and then we will check what we have done the last time. So we see the patients which we have operated on and during following missions. And maybe there is a patient I have operated 2 or 3 times, I had operated it once in 2002, and the next time it was another problem in 2012, and the same patient I operated in 2020 or so. So we know, usually we know the fate of our patients. We have to know it, not only the results in the operating theater or the in-hospital results, we also want to know how the patients are doing. And of course, we get a lot of informations and messages and cards and letters or so from patients all over the world. That's another rewarding point, of course, within EurAsia Heart Foundation. And also, which I think is very important, we really get deeply into the culture of these countries, be it from religion, we are active in Muslim countries, in Christian countries, in Buddhist countries, and so on. We look for any kind of patients with all ethnics or so. We see about the philosophy, about the history of the country. They want to show us the country, and it gives also a deep understanding of the local culture and of the local people. And this is, enriching all the members of EurAsia to travel, not only from the professional standpoint, but I would say also from the personal development. You can see a lot of things different. And usually I must say, if we get some kind of culture shock, then we when we arrive in these countries, but then we are back in Switzerland, because then we see sometimes that we have so small problems, and we make these small problems so to become so big problems in our country where we are spoiled or so. And when you travel abroad, then you see a different world, and you become a bit more modest, and not every small problem at home is a big problem.
So
That's
very, very true.
so fantastic.
And what ways can individuals or organizations contribute or support your foundation?
I'm in different ways, Of course, the most important point easily is money. The more, the bigger, the better the financial capacity, the more missions we can make, the more doctors and nurses we can let to travel into these countries, the more children we can save. It's very easy. If you see in Afghanistan, if you can save one child for $1,000, we could easily save 1,000 children per year in all these countries, easily. We have not the financial capacities for this. So money, of course, is the main problem of our foundation. Besides, we get sometimes support with regard to equipment and materials, maybe from hospitals. Maybe that the new cardiac surgical hospital will be created somewhere in a city here in Europe, and we get then the old materials and can bring it to these countries. So that helps. With regard to, we have a lot of political support from all these countries. Always, the president, the minister of health, the mayor of the cities or so, they facilitate traveling to these countries, and hospitality is great. So if we can get disposables, devices, hardware, that's very important. But the most important point is money. That can be individual donations or so. And honestly, what we have not achieved, we have not achieved to get a big company, as a continuous partner. So let's say one of the huge multinational big companies who earn billions of dollars or so per year, who really say, okay, we give a commitment to EurAsia Heart Foundation, we will support them for 5 years. They have to present the result or so, and so that they can really concentrate on the medical work. Just now we do both, we have to do this fundraising, and aside from this, we have to do the medical work. So the best...
Well, how about Novartis? It comes to my mind immediately. It's Switzerland,
Usually if we send a letter to big companies, they receive so many letters. The secretary of the chief or of the board of the foundation, they have their own foundations. They receive, I know from some companies, 600 requests and letters per year. So if you send something, it's going into the letter immediately or so. So everything is about personal connection, and even then, if you have your personal connections, it's quite difficult really to get one of the big companies as a 5-year partner or so. I do not really understand why we haven't achieved that during the last 20 years, but that's the truth. And that would be most important for us, that we can fully concentrate on the
long-term partner. Yes, okay, and donor long-term.
And have you also considered religious institutions? Like the Vatican has a lot of funds available for health, social health.
Not yet done that. Not yet.
Okay, then we'll connect you with them.
Yeah. Okay. That'd be nice.
Paul, maybe one of the latest questions. So looking forward, what are the major challenges and opportunities you foresee for the foundations, especially maybe looking at current technology, innovation, development in our world?
Okay. Of course, we try to bring update technology, of course, to teach what is really modern cardiac surgery. So we are going to teach cardiac surgery, also minimally invasive cardiac surgery, where it is possible. We are supporting research. So EurAsia Heart Foundation has 3 startups where we have done chronic animal studies, acute and chronic animal studies, where we have the necessary data, and we are just on the way to do first in human. And so it's also research, the development of cardiac surgery, what we are going to support. We do clinical trials. We have supported and organized FDA studies and FDA trials in these countries. And we also publish scientific papers with staff members from different countries. So at all level of cardiac surgery, not only in the practical work, but also with regard to science and publications, continued education, or so. We are active in all parts of cardiovascular surgery. It's also, and we have also thoracic surgery unit. We did also bring some neurosurgeons, some visceral surgeons, or some plastic or reconstructive surgeons to these hospitals. We always look where is the weakest point of the hospital, when everything works, but the hospital has a problem with infections, with perioperative infections, and we can solve. Next time we bring our infectious disease specialist that it should solve this weakest problem of the hospital,
Right.
Our work is in different fields, covering above all cardiovascular diseases, but also other specialties. And I would say the challenge is will never end. The progress in cardiovascular medicine is huge, particularly in cardiology, in interventional cardiology, where we bring also the new technologies to these countries. And I can tell you, as I mentioned, 90% of the kids, as mentioned, and so we will have enough work. One problem is if you're going to Africa is that usually the African countries, they lack the equipment, disposables, and the materials. So we can only become active if we organize heart-lung machine, ventilators, devices, and so on. And this is too much with regard to our financial capabilities. We can easily bring knowledge, skills, and how to do it, but we cannot bring for 3D equipment for all these countries. And usually in African countries, this is the problem. In Eurasian countries, they are already well developed. Some are excellent developed, and I must say it's very important. Remark, it's not a one-way. So it's always a two-way. So it's a benefit for all. So if you are going there, you see many excellent colleagues, from which we can learn ourselves. We see a lot of patients with rare diagnoses which you see maybe 4 times per year in Switzerland. And there you see 100 or 200 patients like this. And we see really our excellent colleagues where we can learn techniques and operations and tricks and tips. It's always a give and take, and it's always on 2 ways. And that's very important.
Exactly.
Oh, wow, Paul, you really inspired us today. So thank you so much for joining. But very last, not a question, but sharing your call to action for our global audience. What would you say?
A call to action is, there are a lot of problems in our world. And COVID-19 was a problem. The international conditions, they are a problem. And these are the children who suffer most. For many, many children, even though they are healthy, they have a lot of problems in many of these countries. And if a child has a sick heart or so, it's really an enormous suffering, and it have huge problems. And so we should do the best we can for our children, because our children are our future. And this is where we give our strong and our continued commitment. And we hope that the EurAsia Heart Foundation will be supported for the benefit and the best of our children worldwide. This is my main message.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Paul.
much.
And I can only add that whoever is watching us today, Christmas, New Year's are coming, maybe reduce the amount of presents you're buying or whatever you can, and donate 1,000 francs to save one life, one heart.
Well, thank you very much, Sveta. Thank you very much, Ben, for the opportunity. Thanks a lot. And I wish
Thank you.
you,
We will keep in touch, Paul.
okay, I wish you also a nice Christmas and then a successful and happy New Year. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul.
Bye.
Well, dear viewers, with this we finish the nice episode of Season 7.
And wait for our next episode. And thank you for watching us.
If you are interested to present your story and your inspiring work on our TV, then please contact us at apply@isolutions.ch. And remember, it's not hard to act, just give your heart to impact thousands of hearts.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Hey, we hope you have been inspired by the remarkable stories that shape impact investing worldwide.
Make sure you subscribe to our channel not to miss any future episodes.
Contact us if you want to support our guests or be the next TV show guest yourself.
Join the awesome impact community and invite your friends to do the same.
You can find us on TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, podcast, anywhere in your favorite social media.
We'll look forward to sharing the next episode with you. And remember,
Together, we create a truly sustainable future.